So this is going to be a little bit more of demonstrating how an agent can fit into a data pipeline that involves processing documents. It won't be particularly technical, but if you have more questions about it afterwards, I'll do a little Q&A at the end, and we also have a booth downstairs in the expo hall. Effectively, I'm going to show off I'm going to give a quick intro about, I won't spend very much on what an AI agent is. I assume most of you are probably familiar or getting familiar at this point. And then I'll go through, a lot of this I'll spend going through demonstrating creating an AI agent using the platform that Kolena creates. And then we'll talk a little bit about how it fits into a data pipeline for the automation piece. Cool. Just a quick word about Kolena. We were founded in 2021 during the pandemic. We work with a lot of big companies now. Our original product had to do with ML evaluation and testing. And now we have kind of pivoted from there, integrated that into the back end of what we're doing to facilitate the creation of agents. I also want to pitch this very quickly. We hosted a really fun conference last year. We're not going to do it this year again, unfortunately, but it was called the AI Quality Conference. It was over in San Francisco, which is where I'm based, where the company's based, although we're all remote. It was very fun. But there are talks. The reason I put it here is that there are talks at aiqualityconference.com. If you are at all involved in the creation or maintenance of AI systems, I encourage you to go check out the content there. Okay, cool. This agenda is actually slightly out of date, so don't pay too much attention to this. Key thing is I'm just going to talk about AI agents and workflow automation, and then we're going to go through several use cases where there's a document-intensive workflow. So that's a lot of what we're seeing, for example, is due diligence for compliance and underwriting, insight extraction from customer interactions, document comparison, so things like policy comparison. I'm going to show a couple of other things as well. Cool. So AI agents and workflow automation. Just very briefly, what I mean when I say an AI agent is something that's automating a process in this case. So we're talking about a system that integrates various tools. It's an LLM model as the foundational model, but that model is then leveraging other tools. We are having the system route to the appropriate tool, the appropriate model, based on the task. And the idea is that there is enough intelligence to automate a process that would otherwise be done by a human. So things like due diligence, contract reviews, data analysis, things like that. The way of interacting with these enables some continuous learning, and you'll see that the interface for this is actually natural language, which is, so the platform, you can think of it as a no-code platform, but the idea is to just expose the interface for creating these agents in natural language, as opposed to requiring you can use your domain knowledge rather than needing to have specific technical knowledge about how to create these things. Just a few more examples of real-world industry applications where people are using this product: loan underwriting, compliance, legal document review, finance reporting, anything basically where there's a lot of text information. But I'm also going to show like using images in an insurance claim, for example. Cool. So what Kolena is you can think of it as the middle here. You have your input data stream. It's documents, images, handwritten stuff, audio. You set those up as the data source, which is then automatically ingested by the agent. The middle is where you have an agent. You create all the instructions. That's what I'm going to go through with you live here today, is the process of creating an agent, giving it all the instructions, setting it up so that it's anytime it gets in something new from the sources on the left, it generates the result based on whatever instructions you've given it on the right. So if you're trying to generate a report, an analysis, generate some recommendation for downstream action, trying to get to a decision faster, that's the idea. These agents are facilitating going from what was otherwise a slow manual process that people would have to take deliberate time to go through a lot of different documents and cross-reference and all of that. You can accelerate much faster through that and get to the actual decision-making process, which is generally more valuable and also more interesting for people in general. And I'm going to show this in live, but this is just another way. First step, you're connecting your data, wherever your data lives, cloud storage service, whatever file type. You configure your agent by giving instructions in natural language, and then you get a structured output. So It could be a CSV table. It could be a PDF report in Prose, whatever it is. This a structured output that you can then use downstream in other tools or on its own to facilitate a decision-making process. Sorry for the word-heavy slide here, but thinking about that, I was trying to think about relating this a little bit more for the data engineering side of things. And a lot of teams will hit this wall where at some point a huge percentage of the data that you're working with is in unstructured data, unstructured formats, contract policies, Scanish tables, things like that. And you can think of what this agent is fitting in for. It's you're transforming a brittle or manual ETL process into these data pipelines that are much more flexible because they have these LLMs, which are much more adept at handling different inputs, and that they can be easily monitored and maintained without a lot of additional overhead. And the connectors, what we're calling connectors, that's establishing a source and a destination. That sets it up so that you can plug it in as automation for whatever document pipeline that you're working with. And then Kolena, as the platform, is the agent operator, is maintaining and optimizing the service. It's always choosing whatever the best model available is for any given task, for any given subtask in what you've assigned the agent to do. Cool. So let me show you. I'm going to jump out of the browser, or excuse me, the slides, and over to the actual. Let me open actually a new page here. So this is basically the homepage for an agent. Creating an agent is you create an agent for a specific task, and you give natural language instructions for what you want the agent to do. So, for example, I'm going to show kind of like a general contract abstraction use case, which is you have any kind of legal document, a contract, a real estate lease, anything like that you want to effectively summarize and pull out the relevant clauses to whatever is your use case, your application. So if we wanted it to extract information from leases, we can instruct it there. But we actually have this as a template here. I'm just going to click that. It'll fill in what it's going to do for this particular agent. We've given these instructions to draft lease abstracts for commercial real estate. This is going to be actually used in the creation of this agent because it's going to be rewriting its own prompts. There's some prompt optimization built in here, and it uses this objective to understand how best to optimize. So it's using every bit of information that we provide to optimize the experience. To create an agent, you effectively just choose some initial set of documents, some initial set of data as an example. In this case, I am going to show you this. I have a commercial office lease, just a single PDF. Hopefully the internet's faster here. Great. So this is probably a little hard to read, but this is an office lease. It's got all these fields, like who's renting this property. It's for some financial information, some clauses like here, there's free rent for the second month, et cetera, et cetera. And if you can imagine this being the type of form that you might see a lot of, and it might come in a lot of different formats, and you need some standardized way to be handling this consistently and generating consistent output. So when you're giving instructions to the agent, you can use just natural language. So I can just say who is the lessee in this case. I'm going to go ahead and click create, and it'll start running on that while I create another one. I want to know, what is sorry, the internet's going a little slow here. And I want to know, I'm just going to go a little quickly here, but let's say I want to know what is the rent schedule. This is something that would be common for these lease processing. So what happens here is that it takes in the initial prompt that we've given it. It will rewrite that based on the objective that we've given, and also based on its contextual understanding of the document that we provided. So this document's parsed automatically when it comes in. It is essentially understood. And so now, based on what I just wrote, it rewrote those instructions. It elaborated on them, understanding what's contained in this type of document and what kinds of things are involved based on the objective that I gave it. We can choose to update this prompt if we want, but the main idea is that this is kind of automatically taking care of some of the tasks that somebody would otherwise have to, futz around with the prompt to get it to work right. It's not something you have to worry about here. So I'll go ahead and click Create to get that going. And in the back end, we're choosing which model and which tool is most appropriate, what kind of things are appropriate. And we can do things like calculations. So if I want to know, like, what is the remaining lease term, and I'm just going to choose an arbitrary date from, I don't know, let's say, what's today's date? April 22nd, 2025. The model can handle complex questions that are, it's not just simple extraction. This is the main thing I want to showcase here. It's that it's not just pulling out information, it's actually processing that information and doing things intelligently. So yeah, I'll do questions at the end. Unless it's a fast question, I can do a fast question.
It was just regarding the second one, when it produced a different prompt, I didn't notice. Did you ask it to produce a different prompt? Or did it
No.
automatically determine it needed more clarification?
It will always try and enrich.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yes. He's asking, did I have to tell it to enrich that prompt? The answer is no. It will always do that by default. We can always revert it and manually say, no, I want you to follow these specific instructions. But otherwise, it's basically trying to do its best, knowing how the underlying model expects to receive prompts. It'll rewrite it in that format. That way, you're much more likely to get what you expect, basically. Yeah. Great. So I want to come back to this rent schedule one. So it's pulled out this rent schedule, understanding specific clauses that this table is not included anywhere in this document, but things like this clause 1.5a, free rent, the base rent for the second month of the lease is, what is it called? Abated, I think it was. Shall be 100% abated. So you can see here that this has been intelligently incorporated into this table here. That wasn't something that I needed to specify. I didn't need to say, watch out for this free rent clause or whatever. This is understood now. So this is very powerful for these LLMs that they can do. And we expose this reasoning section for all of these extractions. So we can actually follow effectively the kind of chain of thought for what these models are doing. So you can it says it analyzed the lease document, it extracted the rent schedule from multiple sections. It understands that there's this specific provision, and it will also reference where it pulled this information from using this document citation. There's only one document in this example that I'm giving, but it also provides page-level citations so that we can see where it's pulled this information from. And the idea is that this is all contributing to a kind of a trust and quality score that way when you are trying to use these systems, you're leveraging the expertise that we have in the background to have an agent that is reliable and trustworthy that you can plug in somewhere without having to worry too much, or at least being able to verify that things are doing what you want. And I'll show you down here. It came up with 1 year and 7 months, and we can see that it actually did some calculation here. It started from the date that I gave it and did a calculation based on that. And if we wanted to, let's see, actually, say, for example, you are wanting a slightly different output, the way that this partly ties to the question that we had earlier, you can either change the prompt directly. So if you wanted to do something specific, if you want it to correspond to a particular format, you can do that very easily. But the interface is actually designed around this natural language approach so that you, just as if you were chatting with ChatGPT, you can ask or suggest a way to improve it. So whatever that you want it to do, such as, what was this? Don't count maize or something like that. And the idea is that it's rewriting that based on natural language. So again, this is kind of an interface thing. And what you end up with is a structured output here. So this is the report view. It's just all of these fields as you build them up. They come over here in this output view, which it can be in a document like this, like a PDF or a docx file, or output is JSON if you have it. If you want it in a structured format to go into a downstream tool that expects a structured, then that's also something that is kind of natively built in. And the the main idea, and not everybody, I think you as a more technical audience are probably familiar with this, but this is something that you're establishing once for this document. And every time you have a new document come in, it'll run through these instructions. And so it's not something that you have to be doing every time you have a new document come in. I see I only have a few minutes left already, so I'm going to move quickly to show you something a little bit more sophisticated. This is actually something we're using internally at Kolena. We just set it up so that it's looking at all of our sales call transcripts, and we have it taking a look at things like customer interest level. And this is a prompt that we set up. This is like a custom classification that we set up. So based on the conversation and engagement level shown in the meeting. And we gave it indicators to look for, such as concrete next steps, enthusiasm and responses, depth of technical business discussion, et cetera. And we decided to go with these classes, basically. And therefore, what this is enabling us to do is to create an agent that's both flexible and adjustable based on specific criteria that we're looking for. It's not just quantitative factors, it's also these qualitative factors that we can then specify. And we can also do things like, I don't really have time to do a full-featured use case, but what we've set up for this one is you can enable things like web search. So in this case, what we have them do is we pull the company name out of the transcript, and then we asked it to search online for the company's LinkedIn profile. It enriched this. We kind of just gave it this initial instruction, and then it added this. And effectively what this does is that now anytime anytime a sales call happens, we immediately just have this LinkedIn information for it. And that's just a basic example, but an example of incorporating tool use in here. And this tool use is optimized so that you don't have to be maintaining or worrying about any of this stuff. So if you're building in your own document pipeline, it's not something you have to necessarily worry about. Cool. Lastly, I want to show that this is a dashboard that we're using. These dashboards are another way that we're incorporating Python code generation for some of this. So let's say you have you'll end up with each one of these rows is effectively a document that's been processed. It's this big CSV file, which you can also be like a JSON file that you have downstream or whatever. But effectively, you can take a look at the summary of all of this in whatever kind of custom format that you want by adding a widget. Again, just giving natural instructions. So what's the distribution of customer interest? And I'm just going to cancel that because we already have it here. But it will generate the code that it needs to create that chart based on whatever you said. And so you can have arbitrary code generation here as well as part of these agents. And the primary value here is that you are building an agent that has the flexibility to adjust to whatever output format that you want, but also the flexibility to deal with lots of different input formats and can be extensible in any way that's necessary to automate any document workflow. We see a lot of use cases for people that are dealing with insurance, finance, law, really any back office process though. And particularly from a data perspective, is just using it as a more powerful tool that can it can still fit into an automated pipeline and still monitor for quality in the same way. And then also the advantage here is that by having the agent living here, we're always using the best tools, the most up-to-date tools, so that that part doesn't have to be considered by whoever's engineering the pipeline. I'll go have to wrap up here because I think I'm just about out of time.
You have 5 minutes for 7 minutes for presentations.
Oh, okay.
And then questions.
Okay, great. Let's see here. I want to show. Let me show just very quickly another example for how this use case. This is one of our coworkers his apartment had some sprinkler damage that caused water damage. He uploaded to the platform here this policy document, which specifies the coverage for his insurance. And he uploaded this repair invoice or estimate from this contractor who gave a bunch of details. I know this is probably very hard to read. But basically for each room, there's a lot of detail about and specialized tags and information about exactly what was done, how much it was done, financial information, etc. And then supporting evidence for this is the photos. So he took photos of the repairs happening, the damage before the repair and the state after the repair. And one thing that's cool that these can handle now is you can ask for, let's see here, I asked it to take a look at the photos and the repair documentation and asked it to check if the visible damage and repair work is consistent with what's described in the estimate. So effectively, taking a look at this document, taking a look at saying what was done, does it match what we actually see in the photo? And this was largely enriched by the model itself, also kind of adjusted by me as well. And we had this generate just kind of a quick true-false so that from an automation perspective, we'll see if this is trustworthy or if it needs further review. But we also have all of this reasoning here so that we can go in and verify that this is working correctly. And we can see that it was able to confirm things like the type of damage, the affected materials, the locations shown in the photo, the scope of work appears appropriate, etc. And you can do this for any arbitrary request. And this is just an example of showing how information contained in the images is being utilized. But the idea is that you're multimodally taking in a whole bunch of information, providing it to the agent, letting it follow through on those instructions for each of the different types of outputs. A field, you can think of it as like generating a schema for the output. And for each field in the schema, you're providing instructions about how to generate that field. And that way you end up with exactly what you expect in a format that is effectively standardized, even though the input is not standardized. And then you can use that downstream. You can have these agents' output used as input by another agent and to create a chain of agents, for example. And the way that we don't have that actually built into the interface right now, but just for illustration purposes, we do have the ability to connect a source and a destination. So you would choose wherever your data lives, such as cloud storage location. In this case, I've got my Google Drive connected actually. So I would say, anytime that something appears in this, let's see, I don't know if I have, I'll just say, anytime anything appears in this data room folder, it will be automatically processed by the agent, and then we'll have it dump out in some other location, such as another Google Drive folder, for example. And that's the extent of the integration. We have a bit more integrations than the ones that were shown here, but it's it's very easy and quick to set up an integration like that, and that way you have this automation going. And if you wanted to do a bit more sophistication on the back end for that, that's very possible to do. This is just kind of like the easy UI, user-friendly version of doing that. So just to kind of wrap up here, let me go back and maximize this here. There are a lot of different use cases. I didn't go through all of these, but the key idea is that these agents are accelerating workflows, and they can be put into these data pipelines where you're dealing with a lot of unstructured data. That's the main thing. It's designed to the UIs. A lot of what I showed is designed to be intuitive, but you can think of it as a more powerful tool within your pipeline as a way to capture what these LLMs are able to do right now, and able to the way that they're interacting with them in a way that stays consistent, as opposed to having to restart or do things manually one at a time. If you were to copy and paste something into ChatGPT, for example. And something that's special about the way that we're doing it, it relates to our background as this ML testing and evaluation company. And we have all of these quality checks in the background now. And we do things like automatic prompt optimization, which I talked about. We include citations to the document, so it's similar to if you were using a RAG system and you wanted to know which documents were referenced in the generation of the output. This is something that's provided and can be verified. Same thing with the reasoning. It's exposing the thinking that these agents are doing so that you can trust and verify that everything's happening that you expect. The suggest an improvement feature means that you can go in and ask it to tweak what it's doing, and that improvement is propagated across all of its runs forever after, so that you can continue to iterate based on new versions of the document that you're seeing or things that you want in your output. It's very easy to check. And then we kind of summarize this as a quality check of confidence at the end. And this is a simplistic diagram, but a big part of what we're adding is the task planner here, where we're choosing which models to use to plan tasks, what we route to, which models are best at understanding images, which models are best at doing calculations, whatever it is. We have the prompt optimization quality checks. We have quality checks in terms of the execution systems, and we have quality checks in terms of how we're structuring the output, and then quality checks in terms of the end-to-end system. If you want to know a little bit more about this, we can talk about it a little while later. I don't necessarily have all of the details on this, but I'd be happy to chat about it with everybody. If you are interested in a particular use case, there's a bunch more video demos for some of the use cases at kolena.com/use cases. We also have a page about how we're implementing these AI quality checks. If you go to kolena.com AI-quality, it's a little bit more about what I was talking about there at the end. And if you or somebody you know wants to be using an agent like this for these document workflows, we'd love to chat with you. You can either come up and talk to me at the end or reach out to us, info@kolena.com. And we have a booth downstairs in Expo Hall as soon as you walk in to the right. All right, we'll wrap it up there.